And welcome to today's tutorial. Today we are going to be showing you how to frame your basement with steel. Because you know what? Times have been changing. And if you've been to the hardware store lately, you realize that 2x4s can be almost $10. I don't know where it is in every market, but that is crazy money for a 2x4. Now, I get it, right? We have supply and demand issues going on, so the lumber price has gone through the roof. But the steel prices have also gone up, but not quite so aggressively. So I'm buying steel studs today for about $5.50, and my 2x4 lumber is going for almost 10. So if you're gonna be framing a basement, today I'm gonna go through the entire assembly, okay? And all the different options for different basement conditions, show you how to frame it with steel, the tools to use, the techniques to build, how to do the wiring and pass your electrical inspection, how to get your vapor barrier installed, because everything changes when you go from wood to steel. So today's video is all dedicated to everybody who's gonna be DIYing their basement this winter. We're gonna give you all the tools and the skills necessary so that you can have a successful renovation and not have to go give all of your money to the lumber company. All right, so let's jump into this. First of all, we have two kinds of steel, all right, that you're gonna wanna deal with. For simplicity, we're gonna stick with the same dimensional. This is 3 5/8. 2x4s come at 3.5. So we're gonna just call this a steel 2x4, okay? It's basically the same concept, and they come in 10-foot pieces. This is called track, and then we have studs, right? So studs are the vertical pieces, and the track is the bottom and the top pieces. And you'll notice that there are no holes in the tracks, all right? Steel walls are not designed to be puncturing and driving your electrical and your plumbing through, okay? Just so you know, you really wanna think twice about how you're bringing your plumbing into those areas. It changes the rules a little bit. And there are two different electrical systems that you can use when you're working with steel. We'll go with both of them later, but for now, we'll just talk about your assembly. Now, I don't have a basement to do this video in, so I'm in my living room. And what I've done is I've hung my tie par against the outside wall. And this is because if it doesn't really matter if it's a brand new basement or an older basement, you want to have a separation between the stone wall and your insulation, okay? That's the bottom line, otherwise you're gonna get condensation right on your insulation and then you're in trouble. So, the building code requires that you have a separation. You can use tar paper if you like. I like Tyvek because A, it's cheap, and B, you can use it indoors and outdoors. Now this is a water barrier, it's not a vapor barrier. All right, for everybody who's gonna put a comment, you can't do that because you got plastic outside, your double vapor barrier. It's not a vapor barrier, okay? Understand your technology before you shoot off in the comments. This allows air vapor to pass through. It's a proper building technique. I'm not breaking the rules. If I had $1 for everybody who commented on my other video in the basement about the Tyvek on the outside of the wall. Anyway, enough ranting. Let's move on. So, we got Tyvek, right? We also got down at the basement floor, pressure treated lumber, okay? Don't cheat and put this directly on your concrete. And here's why. People ask me all the time, why don't you use steel in the basement? Two things. A, I end up using a lot of this because I don't like working with gloves. And if you're a fan of the channel, you know what that means. I go through a couple rolls of Band-Aid working with this metal stuff. I don't like working with gloves, and so I'm always cutting myself. The other reason I don't like it in basements is, generally speaking, if you get a water event in your basement, this steel stud is going to rust out. And I've been in way too many projects where we've torn out a basement, and the steel plate, okay, and the bottom of the studs were all rusted out, and the walls are sagging, everything's falling apart. And I found that even an old, moldy, rotten piece of wood holds up better over time than steel. So the problem with galvanized metal, and that's not galvanized, sorry. The problem with steel in the basement is relative humidity, right? And the efflorescence in the stone, which leaves a salt deposit. Now, if you have a salt deposit and you've got high levels of humidity, guess what you also get in the air? Salt water, and that loves to eat steel, right? So here's your thing. If you're gonna do this in your basement, I would prefer if it was a newer basement that has water management wrap around the building, plastic under the subfloor. But I know a lot of you are gonna just ignore that advice and put the steel in the basement anyway, so build on top of a pressure treated plate. So if you get a water event, okay, what you do is you lay your 2x4s around the room, attach them with the concrete nailer or adhesive, and leave a gap every 8 to 10 feet for a few inches. So then if you get a water event, the water has somewhere to come into the room. You'll say, oops, I got water. You'll be able to dry it up and your wall will not decay, all right? This way, at least you're gonna get a 25-year. It'll probably last 50, even in older homes. I'm just not a big fan because of that reason primarily, and secondly, I like the smell of fresh cut wood. But since it's expensive, this makes a lot of financial sense, so we're gonna go through the process because it's actually really, really quick and simple. And I think a lot of you are gonna appreciate the fact that it doesn't take a great degree of skill, but there are a few specific tools you're gonna need and a few processes that you're gonna have to understand in order to be successful at it. So we're gonna go through all that right now, all right? I told you I don't like wearing gloves for this kind of stuff. I put it on for the introduction. Just to encourage you, if you're not familiar with this material, please wear gloves. It'll slow you down a ton and drive you crazy, but you won't have to use so much electrical tape throughout your day. Here's the deal. With wood, you want to build sections of the wall on the floor, and then lean it up, level it, screw it in. This is completely different. This kind of wall system you build in place. So the first step you do is do the whole perimeter, put all your track down, and screw it in with these. This is a self-tapping fine thread screw. And believe it or not, this will actually attach wood and metal together with relative ease. All right? And you're gonna wanna buy some of these because they will make your life easy. There are moments during your construction where you're gonna wanna add a little bit of lumber to your wall frame for convenience, like if you're putting in plumbing, you don't wanna use metal cross beams, okay? Sticking a little bit of wood around your doors. Add a piece of wood to get extra strength so your hinges have something to screw into, that kind of stuff. But that's the kind of screw you want. It's a 6x 1 1/4. Okay. These screws will do just about everything you need them to do. When you're attaching your studs together, you're gonna wanna use these. All right, ready? Big reveal, bum bum. This is called a wafer screw, okay? The head of the screw is incredibly flat and really wide, and it has a nice sharp tiny little point on it, and you screw the two pieces of metal together with a fine thread. And the reason we use this is because the head on this screw is so flat it doesn't interfere with the drywall installation. All right, that's the key. So we have metal screws for attaching wood and metal together, and we have these little wafer screws for attaching all the metal pieces to other metal pieces. That's our components. Now let's get into building this wall. Yeah. Sorry, special note, I'm getting ahead of myself. Your 2x4 and your steel plate, you want to leave about 1 inch to 1.5 inch gap to the wall. And the reason for this is most new construction requires an R20 insulation in the wall, all right? That requires you to have about 5 to 5.5 inches of space between your Tyvek and your drywall. And since we're using 2x4 studs, we need to add that extra airspace so there's room for the insulation in behind the stud wall. All right, that's what we're doing. So when you put your whole base plate down, leave that gap, just throw in a 2x4 in behind it. It's easy to mark, block it off, get all your tracks set up. And then the next trick is to have a laser level. Now, you can have a regular level, but when you're working with this kind of stuff, using a laser level is worth its weight in gold, okay? Because you're gonna have obstructions in a basement. The reason I'm building here is because I have this beam that's helping to support my second floor, but it's very indicative in a basement that you're gonna have a steel beam coming out of your concrete wall you're gonna need to build around. So now I'm gonna show you how to do it, and then I'm gonna show you all of the finishing touches for how to get a complete installation. Now, we need some studs. Because we're building in place, the first thing you wanna do is cut your studs. All right, so we're gonna measure the stud right to the inside of the steel. We're gonna go floor to ceiling, and my measurement is 94 1/4. Your steel stud is also 1.5 inches tall. And because you're working with steel, your measurements don't have to be perfect. So you can take the average of the shortest measurement and cut a whole bunch of studs exactly the same length. And the easiest way to do that, and I'll show you that right now, is this. The studs come in bundles of 10. They're already bundled flush. So you can take one measurement. We're gonna go 94 1/4 here, I said, right? And we can just mark all these studs 94 1/4. Okay, done. That's easy. Now, if you have a fancy saw like this one, you can use it to cut the studs, but you can also just use a regular pair of tin snips, all right? Let me show you how easy this is. La-da-da. Now, as this comes firing apart, you're gonna realize there's actually 10 of them, right? So you're gonna wanna just go like this. Okay, and now, let's just talk about the stud real quick because this is kind of dangerous. The edges are sharp. All the holes that are in it are designed for electrical and actual structural support. There is a square rod that you can put in here and on the side, and you turn it over and it sits in there so tight it gives the wall an incredible amount of strength. So if you're building interior walls and you're concerned about using this, don't be. You got to go to a proper store for that kind of material because the Home Depot sells a very light gauge residential material, okay? But if you go and Google for the wholesale supplier for steel studs, you can get a much better quality, a heavier gauge, and you can get the locking rod that I'm talking about. I actually bought this steel at one of those stores, and they have a different size hole than the one at Home Depot. And so I made a mistake and I bought grommets at the Home Depot today, and they don't have the same size. Big surprise. Anyway, here we go. I'm just gonna take my mark. And for everybody out there who's watching this going, wow, that is crazy, right? That's not a very exact science there, Jeff. I'm like, yep, I'm dealing with steel, okay? Nothing about this is exact. Man, that is a really nice gauge metal. The stuff they're selling at Home Depot was actually, I think it was $8 a stud, and it's a lighter gauge metal. The stuff at the commercial store, and I don't have an account there, I just walked in and bought it like a retailer. And I'm gonna suggest you get this stuff. This is awesome. And again, be real careful when you're handling this stuff. I actually had an injury one time years ago. I had a bundle of 10, and I was just grabbing them off the cart and sliding them towards me, picking them up and throwing them in my truck. And my thumb got caught right in the hole. And it cut me right to the bone. What a mess. And of course, you know, I had my electrical tape on me, so I just strapped it all together and went back to work. Not advisable. I should have seen a doctor for that one, but all right, here we go. Now, you're gonna wanna have a system with your studs because they're hollow, right? There's one face and then two sides. Always have them facing in the same direction. It's very crucial you always have them facing the same direction because the insulation for these studs, even though that you measure and mark them at 16 inch on center like you do wood, the insulation for studs is wider because it's not four-sided material, okay? So it's actually wider. So if you have them interchanged, you're gonna mess up your insulation and your R value on your wall. So make sure they're always facing the same way. Make sure you're always cutting at the same end as well. That way when you're running your plumbing, your electrical, and all your stabilizing bars, everything lines up, which is super and critical because when you get inspections from plumbing and electrical associations, they want to see neat, tidy work so that they know you have a modicum of professionalism and they can relax a little bit knowing that if they see you doing good work all along the wall, they can expect the rest of the house to be the same and they won't take so much time being picky about every little thing you do. Now, for the purpose of this demo, yeah, let's cut it 5 feet. All right, we'll do a 5-foot section here. I'll do a 2-foot section on the other side of the beam. I'll show you how to measure it and mark it and lay it out and we'll go from there. All right, so we're gonna cut this at 5 feet. I got my mark. And by the way, this is the new Evolution saw. It is a cut-off saw. It's basically just a chop saw. It's a really cool tool with great blade technology and it's actually inherently dangerous. There's the locking system and we're gonna tighten this up so that our material doesn't move around on us. This is not a saw that you put your hands anywhere near this bad boy, okay? You line it up, you cut it, you stay on the right side of the blade, wear your safety glasses, and everything should go fine. Max is the only one putting his life and limb in jeopardy right now, so we'll show you how this bad boy works. And if you'd like to have it and you're a Canadian resident, then go check us out on Instagram because I'm gonna be giving this away after I'm done this demonstration today. And you can check the video description down below. Why did I point up? It's down here. How to join us on Instagram and get in on that giveaway. All right, here we go. There's a safety clip. Well, I'm only going to do that once without hearing protection. Woo-hoo-hoo! That boy was noisy, but what a beautiful cut. You know, like if you're one of these folks that is into precision, even when you're doing things that no one is ever going to see, then this is the tool for you. My goodness. So when you're putting in your top plate, enough of that. When you're putting in your top plate, I'm going to give you a little secret. When you're at the store and you're buying all your studs, they sell this in one of these little sundry aisles, okay? A couple little clips, a couple bucks each. Grab your clips, because this is awesome, all right? You put it on an angle, you snap it together. Okay, I'm gonna be a little short for this, Max. Short man coming through. If I had my boys doing this, it'd be so much easier. All right, there we go. These things are here for this reason. Done. That's not going anywhere. Ta-da, it's an extra pair of hands. And when you're working with steel and you're working by yourself, that is an awesome thing, having an extra pair of hands, right? Like, can't do that with wood, can you? Now we're gonna go to 5 feet here, I think I said, right? I got another clip. Bam, okay. Whew, now that nothing is gonna fall over on my head, and I'm feeling a lot safer, we're gonna use the level. We'll get our corner here perfectly vertical and level, or plumb, as they say. I don't know, here in Canada, we use the word level for just about everything. Now, the next thing you're gonna wanna do in the world of your tool purchasing, get yourself some black magic markers. Working with steel, pencils are no good, but the markers are awesome. And really what we're doing is we've got that laser level right up off the side, right off the middle here, okay? And I'm gonna come down here and identify my mark. You can't really see it very good on the steel. That is the middle of my stud mark. Feel free to measure off the sides, but it's just harder to get the line because they're all rounded. And then I can just move that into the middle. Done. And I know I'm level. I know I'm plumb. Whatever floats your boat. Now, I'll get on this side of it here, and this is the entire system right here. This is the secret. You want to drive your screw in and attach your plate to your stud. Okay? Now you're only going to want to hold the side because when the screw goes through, it'll twist. It'll drive you crazy and cause you problems. So you want to just hold it steady, and the closer you can put that screw to the outside corner where the two pieces meet, the less it bends, all right? So the further you are away, the more it'll bend out of your way. The closer you are to the intersection of the two sides, the tighter that joint will be, and it's a lot easier to work with. Yeah. Next thing I have to do is I have to take my framing screw, and I've got to make sure that I also level this way. Again, I'm just shooting my laser level right into the middle of the stud on the bottom, okay? Then I can come up here and put my mark in the middle, and when I'm happy with it, I can drop my screw. Now, of course, in this instance, I also have the choice of just using a regular level. Because you're working with steel, you get to incorporate all the world magnets. Okay? You can throw a magnet on there and move your thing back and forth until the bubble is perfect, and then drive your screw. Nice and easy. So you got options. You don't have to use a laser. You can use one of these bad boys for almost everything you're doing once you get started. So you can buy a tape measure, it has a magnet on it, so you can stick it out across the room and it'll hold, and then you can pull it out to measure, okay? That can come in real handy. The other system here that you can use is you can stick your tape measure through the hole. They're all over the stud, right? Okay, or you can just measure off the side. But because those corners are rounded, it's a little bit trickier, all right? There we go, there's my 4 foot mark. Yeah, I'm kind of liking that. That's where I want to put my stud. 4 feet on center, okay? And The reason we want to go 4 feet on center is because when you work with metal studs, you have an advantage over wood in that the studs are always perfectly straight. So if you install them perfectly plumb and on center, you can install all your drywall on the vertical. You don't have any horizontal joints to take care of. There's no butt joints, and in a basement, that can be a really good thing for a DIYer, because now all you do is just 2 fill coats on all of the tape joints, and it's simple, right? If you don't know how to do drywall, you probably want to watch the series. We'll put a link up here and in the video description in case you don't see the cards on the device you're watching the video on. We're going to throw in a screw, and set up our plumb. Now, if you're in a basement, you're going to have joist cavities. Okay, I obviously have no idea where my framing is. You can attach steel directly to your joist cavities, and if the joists are running this way, just put in a 2x4 block every 4 to 6 feet, and that's enough to tie everything together, all right? So, we're going to find out where my level is. There we go. And salvage my clip. There we go. Piece of cake. Okay. The other thing these clips do is they hold all the metal together so nothing's running around on you, all right? Actually, for the next stud, I'm gonna show how to screw this in without any assistance, and you'll see the frustration that can develop. And you'll know why these clips are such a good invention. So once you've got your basic frame in, you've got all your top tracks in, you can install all the top tracks without studs, or you can just use your laser level and drop your line from the bottom up to the top and do all that first and then cut all your studs. I just thought I'd show you this way because you're gonna run into situations where you're gonna wanna be able to build a little section like that, and you thought you might like to know how to do that. So here we go, now we're 16 on center. Buy a tape, it has the red squares, okay? Make a mark where the red squares are, and you'll see I'm right on the money, okay? This is where it gets interesting. I'm also gonna put the 4 feet on center mark here on this bottom track. And now I'm measuring outside to outside, so there, that's perfect. Now I was talking about when you're screwing these together, you'll see that when you put your stud in square, it's already opening up, right? When you're screwing it together, sometimes it's nice to leave it a little twisted so it sits flat, okay? But let me show you what the kind of problems you'll run into. And then one of the best things about steel is you only have to screw the face that you can see. You don't have to attach the back corner as well, so don't get too worked up over that. But if you're screwing out here, okay, and you're not holding your steel, that happens every single time, and it will drive you crazy. So, don't put your screw there. Put it on the other side and hold that shut. And that'll happen every single time, and you'll be like a pro. So 94 tight, okay? All right, so I'm just taking my measurement from my stud. This is 94 inches tight. Now, if this was carpentry, I would call 94 inches tight or shy or large, and my guy on the saw would know to adjust a 16th or an 8th here and there. This is metal, okay? So we are not even doing rough framing. We're getting lazier than that. We actually intentionally want to cut everything a little short so we don't have to work so hard to get everything in place. Because the harder you have to fuss around with the steel, the more likely you are to cut your fingers. One at 93.5. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're a little bit too short, as long as there's enough steel that you can make the connection with that screw on the top and the bottom, you're going to be fine. Now, I know a lot of people out there who haven't worked with this stuff before. You're going to wonder, is that going to be strong enough, right? Can that hold the weight of the drywall and everything else? And the answer is yes. I'll tell you right now, it is a lot harder to do a demolition job on a steel stud wall than wood. Because on wood, drywall shakes off the screw. On this particular material, I don't know what it is about this stuff, but this stuff is just so much harder to remove. You can't just hammer a stud off of the track because it's screwed together with that fine thread, and it always holds on. Well, at least with nails, you can just beat the tar out of a piece of lumber, you know, and it'll run away on you. So same thing, we cut from the bottom, measured from the bottom, sorry. I'm installing the same, I'm going in sideways. There's no resistance, no risk of a cut. Snap it in. Get it in the neighborhood where you want it, and go back and grab another piece. Yeah. And at this point, you can just be calling out measurements to someone giving you a hand, and you can just run around and snap the entire room together. Now this is fun. This one's intentionally short. I cut this one so it doesn't even sit in place. We're gonna have a little bit of fun here. I did this on purpose so I can show you the flexibility of this. You know, when you're working with wood, if you cut it too short, you gotta set it aside, you gotta write the number on it, you gotta try to use it again later. With steel, if you cut it a little short, no big deal. Let's put it in. Let's lift it up a ½ inch. Let's get it on the line. Done. All right? I'm a ½ inch off the ceiling. I'm a ½ inch off the floor, and I don't care because it's gonna work perfect. Now remember, we're gonna do the same thing down here for filling in the studs. We're just gonna mark that 16" on center line where the red square is on the tape measure. So this is the one that's sitting on the ground. And again, you know, I'm gonna go close to that corner because even if I start denting it, it's gonna grab. It always grabs. It'll never disappoint. This one is really close to the edge. I can go right up off the corner. Here we go. That's just as good a stud as any other stud in the building. All right, don't think less of yourself because you cut it short. It does not matter. Now, when you're doing this assembly, you can put all your bottom track down, leave your gap. You can put all your top track on, all right? You can use a laser level. You can build the odd frame here and there and level your wall with your hand level if you want to. If that's what you gotta do, that's what you gotta do. It's not a problem. So this kind of assembly where you put a stick at each end of the track, you can use a hand level on, all right? That's what it's for. You put all your tracks in, and then you just start marking all of your points where the studs go, every 16" on center, and you just write down on the plate the height of that stud. And while you're working, you can say, you know, I got 94, 93 3/4, 93 3/4, 93 1/2. I can say, give me 4 at 93 1/2. Keep it simple. Make them all a little short on purpose. You can lift them, you can move them around. You're gonna have a real quick installation. The person on the saw will be able to just cut them off real quick. You can frame your entire basement up in just a couple of hours. Okay, so here we go, guys. We're gonna just go through your electrical procedures right now because there's a couple things you need to know that are totally different, right? Because when you're doing electrical on wood, you drill a hole, you pass a wire. Every 5 feet, that wire has to pass through a hole or be stapled to the wood. And if it's a 14-2, you use an S1 staple. If it's a 14-3, you use a S2 staple. All right, wire and staples, the staples have the information in the package, which wires are compatible. Gotta use the right staple or you'll fail your inspection. But on steel, what do? First of all, electrical in a basement. You're gonna want all your plugs on one circuit, okay? You can go up to 10. That's 100 perimeter feet of wall space. If you need to go a separate circuit, you can. Not a big deal, but the rule is 1 every 10 feet. Okay, one of these, all right? And you put them together in a continuous circuit. So when you're wiring, what I find is the easiest way to do it is to have them consistent. Just take your hammer, mark your studs, run around the room, okay? Every 3 of these, if you start there, 1, 2, 3, that's 4 feet. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, next stud is 9 1/2 feet, boom. Put your hammer, make a line, all right? And you run around the room and everywhere you have that mark, you drop one of your boxes. Okay, makes sense? Now you can put a little bit more if you want, but the idea here is that the cords on a lamp or a light or an appliance are all long enough that no matter where you put it in that room, when the plugs are 10 feet apart, the cord will reach the receptacle without the need of an extension cord. That's the purpose of this, so you are not allowed to cheat. If an electrical inspector comes in and he pulls out his tape measure and you're 10 feet 1 inch, you fail your inspection because there's a risk of someone gonna use a cheap ass extension cord and light the house up on fire because you were too cheap to buy another box and they won't let you pass, all right? Now, you take your box, you put the bottom, you do something. Whatever you do, be consistent because when your room is finished, all your boxes are on the same line, you will look like a professional and not like a rookie. And it adds value to the house when your work looks professional. Now, these particular plastic boxes are the ones you're gonna need. Okay, and you put a screw in the top and the bottom. Resist the temptation to hold the box in place and then add the screw. Big mistake, that'll hurt. Now, these boxes are important. You can't use metal boxes on metal studs, okay, on the outside of a wall, because you have to have a vapor barrier. And in order to avoid buying all the plastic wells or extra vapor plastic and all the garbage that goes with it, you buy a plastic box, and when you cut your plastic on it, you can create the seal right here, okay? And your inspector is going to pass you every time. Now, we have to run some wire now. All right, so now I got to show you how smart I am. Yeah, and this will actually work for you if you get stuck in the same scenario, okay? This is how we do wiring on steel studs. It's going to blow your minds. All right. We're using the zip ties. Here's why. I can use a zip tie, and even with the wrong size grommet, I can attach that to the steel, tighten it up, and now this cable has got no opportunity to come in contact with the cut metal. That's proper installation. It's a lot easier if you buy the grommets where you buy your steel, because there are different manufacturer brands out there, and like I just demonstrated, you can run yourself into trouble buying the wrong grommet for the wrong steel. Anyway, these boxes come with the little putty pads on them. You're going to want to cut about 8 inches of wire. And this is a complete rookie way to do it, but it works and you'll still pass your inspection, so you don't have to show me any hate in the comment section. This is fine for homeowners. You want to see a 1/4 inch of that white sheathing coming through that gap, okay? Now you take your black and your white and you get them out of your way, and you want to loop your wire around that screw and tighten it on. Okay? Receptacles have to have this long enough that it can be attached to your box. Okay? And then you simply take your wires and you roll them up and push them out of the way. If you're going to continue the circuit, you put another wire in beside it. Okay? Here, let's just show that. What the heck? All right. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. There's another slot on this side of the box at the back, and there's also 2 more on the bottom. So you got lots of opportunity for getting wire in there. Okay. For the purpose of our demonstration today, I'm going to show you another trick. And that is this. The code requires that the staple be added to the wire within a certain number of inches of the box. Up here we use the 6 rule. Okay? What you're going to need is you're going to need 2 different sizes of tie wraps. And what we do is we put this tie wrap around the stud only. Whoop. And if I bought it just a little bit longer, it would be better for the demonstration. Look at me go, eh? All right. And then with the other tie wrap, you attach the cable to the tie wrap, like this. All right? And here's why we do it. If you use just the one tie wrap and you attach your cable, then your drywall screw now, if it misses a little bit, has the potential of going through your wire. You have to be perfect with your drilling if you strap it right to the steel. Now it might pass inspection because it's still attached to the frame. And then it's really up to you if you're dumb enough to put a screw in the wire. So the way you avoid that is by attaching your cable to a cable, and look at that gap. You'll never hit that in a million years, okay? Now, I'm warning, the second bag of these, so you can do the whole room, is gonna cost you another $3. But it's worth it to guarantee you don't ever throw a screw in your wire, okay? Little advice there. And now we've got a perfect installation of electrical. You're gonna pass your inspection, your inspector is gonna be super happy with you, and so will everyone you know. Let's get on with the next phase of construction. Now for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm just using regular bad insulation, and I'm gonna show you why it's so important that you buy the stuff that says for metal studs. This is actually for wood. Now this is rated R12, and you see the 12 is actually on there. 2 of these together is 24, which is more than enough, okay? You need R20. So this will be a little bit too thick for the demonstration. And if you're stuck, you can use 2 of these to finish off a wall. You don't have to buy another bag, okay? When it's compressed, it gives an R20, so you're still up to code. Now, when you buy R20, it'll have the 20 on there. Make sure when you install your insulation, the 20 is showing. So your building inspector comes down and he sees that you purchased the right insulation. He sees it on the wall over and over again recurring, knowing that you didn't just put 120 out and then fill the rest of the walls with 12 because you're cheap. All right? Don't be naughty. Now, you put your insulation in your cavity. If this was wood, it would fit fine. But this is steel, and so what you run into, the problem is that the insulation needs to be wide enough to fill this gap. So it's the same gap from the inside edges, but now because it's metal, the insulation needs to actually fit right inside there, okay? So the metal rated insulation is wider than the wood stuff. You can't cheat and use the wrong stuff, because if you use the wrong stuff, what happens is over time, it all sags. And then you end up with gaps across the top of the wall, which of course is right where the outside is, and you will freeze your basement out. All right, so there's a tip when you're buying. Not every store will sell the insulation for metal studs, even if they sell the metal studs. So if that's you and you're in that store and you're like, they don't sell it, don't cheap out and buy the wood stuff and say, I'll figure it out. It's gonna drive you crazy, okay? Because then you have to install all of these studs 1.25 inches closer than you would have before. Now nothing's gonna line up. You can't hang your drywall vertical, and it's just gonna be a real big mess. So just go to another store and get the right stuff. So that was really funny. Just as I finished talking about the insulation, Max goes, hey, I got a question. How are we gonna do the vapor barrier? Right, next step, vapor barrier. Now, if you're doing a basement, that means you have a vapor barrier, right? I mean, it's pretty simple. If you're in a zone where you have a basement, then your vapor barrier is on the inside of your insulation because you're heating in the winter. That's why you have a basement in most situations, okay? Sometimes you'll be in a situation where that's not the case and you've just paid for the luxury of having a basement, but usually that's the case, all right? So check your local building code if you're not exactly sure, because some places the vapor barrier doesn't go on the inside of the house, it goes on the outside, especially in the south, all right? So it's a different construction technology. And just because we're showing you how to insulate and vapor barrier a basement doesn't mean that's how you do your whole house, especially if you live in the south. So be warned, not every video is for every situation and every climate, all right? Vapor barrier, oh, well, that's almost the perfect length. We just measured a cut. This stuff is folded up on the roll, and so it's twice as tall once you've done cutting it, okay? When you do that, keep your fingers tight. Don't be holding them down. That'll hurt. So traditionally, we use a staple hammer when we're putting up our plastic, right? And I know somebody out there is gonna be like, I wonder if my staple hammer is gonna work on the metal. So I'm gonna show you. It don't. Don't use that. There's a better tool, and that is this. Remember I did a video a while back and I showed everybody my favorite tools because the versatility, and the air compressor is one of those tools because that's my crown stapler, and this is where versatility comes in. Now, pneumatic tools will drive staples and nails into the steel framing. All right, and I'll do a demonstration of all of that in just a second. Now, this is a little bit fussy to work with because I think this is the 10-foot plastic I got. That's a lot of plastic for this wall. Wow, hey, note, if you're doing a basement, buy the plastic that goes to 120, I think it's 122 inches or something. It's the 10-foot roll, not the 8, okay? One of the rolls that they sell in the market is 102 inches. That's actually 8 feet and change, and it's not good in a basement. Half of your basement, you're gonna come up the wall, and you're gonna be in the floor joist cavity, and you need your plastic to extend all the way up to the top of that floor joist cavity and around the top, okay? So you can do the proper seal. So you wanna get the 10-foot plastic. Seems counterintuitive at the time you're shopping, but trust me, you're gonna wanna do it. Okay, here we go. Dun, da, da, da. Crown staple versus plastic. Woo! That's really strong, right? Now, you remember I did a video where I was using the staple hammer to hang plastic by myself, and all I did in that video was I grabbed a piece of cardboard. Let's see if that makes it any better. Now, I am really guilty because my pressure is up at 110, I think, 120. To be honest with you, that's a lot of pressure for what I'm trying to do here. My compressor is also very old and I can't turn the dial down. So I'm kind of stuck with it. But there we go. Okay, problem solved. It just gives you a little bit of control, you know. Done. If you do that at each end of the wall in the basement, throw 2 or 3 in, all right? We did this in a video for the kitchen where we showed you how to do the vapor barrier. There's a lot of techniques for installing vapor barrier. I'll let you refer to that, but the basics are this. You staple it in place on both ends, right? You hang all your excess on the ground, especially in a basement. And then you cut the extra off because it's just in the way. If you want to leave 1 extra inch, that's fine. Just put your finger up against the plate, okay? And that's like a measuring tool. You can scribe it. You'll find that plastic on the ground on a job site is just a trip hazard and a slip hazard. People get hurt because they just wipe out losing their footings and the ladders slip off of it. So when you're done installing it, just trim it back right away. Also, collects all the dirt from the house underneath that. When you try to go put your drywall on, you got a pile of crap sitting there and you can't, drives you nuts. The other thing you're gonna need, which works amazing with wood, as far as sound control and air seal, and it works amazing with metal. Not just for those two, but also for the installation purposes. All right, it's the acoustic sealant. Once you've got your sheet hanging there, you can literally throw a bead of this stuff on. Okay. I'll do this right down here in the electrical area. And then come all the way across the bottom as well on that wooden plate. Okay? And you just take your plastic nice and tight and you lay it over. Okay? And now your vapor barrier is installed. Yeah, I know, it seems nuts, but that's it. You don't have to fire 1,000 nails into this thing. Just set your plastic into your goo and you're good to go. Okay? Now, once we've got that, we've gone through how to frame it, level it, plumb it, square it, install the wiring. We've got how to do the installation and the pitfalls there. We've got the depth set perfectly. We're gonna have a nice warm room. We've got an air barrier now, so now we are completely covered. Now it's time to drywall. Now, I told you before that if you install it right, you can hang the sheet vertical. So I'm gonna go grab a sheet of drywall, stick it up there on the wall vertical, and we'll see if we did a good job. Okay, so here is the moment of truth, right? Now, don't go running away quite yet, because we're gonna show you first how to install this vertical and how to do it in a basement properly so it doesn't go to mold. And then we're gonna do the other 2-foot section here, and I'm gonna show you all the tips and tricks for framing around doorways and building that out so that you can actually attach a wooden door to a metal stud, because there are tricks to that. There's also tricks for doing plumbing, and so we'll do all that in just a couple more quick minutes. By the way, if you think you're liking this system and it might be something that you can do at home, then don't forget to like the video itself and subscribe to the channel, because the next video that comes out after this one is going to be how to build a curved wall. Yeah, if you're doing a theater room in the basement or you want a really cool accent and an entranceway downstairs, curved walls rock. Or if you're renovating a house that's got a curved staircase, you're not sure how to put new drywall in, trim it out. We're gonna have all those secrets and tips and tricks in the next video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for that. Now, for the purpose of this, I'm just gonna take a foot off. Okay. There we go. Installing drywall vertical. Remember when we cut the plastic, I left the extra inch? There's a reason for that, and that's because a lot of people will build a wall like this and they won't use a subfloor. And even if you own a house that has newer concrete and you've got a vapor barrier in there, there's always a little bit of moisture transfer, and there's always about 2 or 3 years before that concrete is completely cured, that the water's leaving the concrete. So if you put your drywall directly on concrete, I don't care what condition it's in, how old it is, how dry you think it is, it's going to mold, because this is drier than concrete, and I'm gonna guarantee you the concrete will transfer some moisture sooner or later. And once it gets into here, because you've got a wooden bottom plate, there's food and there's moisture, there's drywall material, and it loves this stuff. So, be careful. Always install your drywall on the plastic. Ha ha ha. My floor is not level, but my wall is. Yeah, this is gonna be perfect. All right, yeah. We're gonna want these screws, aren't we? Now you don't wanna start here because of that edge, right? Start here, near where that corner is. Use the self-drilling screw. Be real careful if you're using a drill like this. You'll start the screw, and then as soon as it grabs the thread, it'll sink right in. It'll like just pull you along for the ride and leave you with a just big hole. Even if you have a dimpler, because when you're drilling that, the drywall's pulled off the wall, and as soon as it grabs, it pulls so hard, the dimpler and everything will just get punched right through the drywall. So if that's a problem for you, then instead of using those silver screws that we have been using, you can grab the fine thread drywall screws that everybody loves to sell and use for wood, but they're actually designed for metal. Now, if you go to the commercial drywall place where they sell the steel studs and you ask for a box of drywall screws, this is what they give you, because this is the most common material in those environments, all right? And for some reason, Home Depot has just as much of this on their shelf as they do wood screws, but they only sell a few bundles of steel studs a year. So I don't know why they're encouraging you to use the wrong stuff, but the fine thread is designed for metal, all right? And all you do is you put your drill here and you kind of like a release. Gravity pulls you straight down, you know there's a stud there. Okay, same thing. As soon as you feel it going in, let off the trigger and then tighten up nice and gentle. And you'll see you can get a good finish, okay? Now, we're gonna try this with the drywall screw gun and see if there's any difference. We recently did a video where we changed the plug on my skill saw. I did that with my drywall screw gun the day I bought it. I put a 20-foot cord on it because it's just a heck of a lot more convenient than having a 5-foot cord that's always disconnecting. So this goes right into the plug. This is awesome. All right, here we go. Yeah. Now these ones work a little differently. You put the trigger down. The trigger has a lock here and the motor stays running the whole time. And until you put pressure on the tip, it doesn't move. And you'll see I don't have to stop, I'm just pushing. And that ends up dimpled and flush perfect every time. $89 with the cord. You don't have to buy the cordless version. Just buy a really nice cord so you always got lots of access to power. Love this tool. You can set the depth on this as well. And if you like, you can probably find this on our Amazon page. There's a link in the description below. You can help support our channel by buying all your tools right there. You can take a quick look at this from where I'm standing at least and tell in a hurry that that drywall screw gun does a much nicer, cleaner job than any of the other screw options with the other drill, okay? So if you're gonna do a whole basement and you're gonna save a few $100s on getting steel instead of wood, then consider buying yourself a tool like that that'll make a huge job really easy to finish, okay? Now, let's entertain you. So we're gonna go through a couple of quick demonstrations of scenarios you're gonna run into. Right now I'm gonna frame a door. We'll show you how that is done, okay? And it's the same as anything else, but you've got to really think through your materials and your measuring, okay? So we're gonna assume it's a 32-inch door. Always add 2 inches when you're framing. So we're gonna go to 34 inches on the frame for the stud, okay? So you just measure and mark, bring your stud over, and leave it off just about an extra 1/8 to 1/4. And I'll explain why in just a second, but let me just show you this. We are going to throw our screw in, use our clamp, of course, right? Now, now that we got our height, we'll toss our level on here. And of course, we're building with our wafer screws. Works every time. And we'll do this. And we'll do the level here. That one's already perfect. And if you like, you can always double check your measurement, okay? 34 and, I'm being a little generous, maybe 34.5. But that's not gonna be a problem. Okay, so now we got our door frame. problem is, when you put your door jamb inside of that, the jamb's made of wood, and they're gonna wanna have something to screw to, right? So what you do is you do this. So we're framing a door. The reason I'm showing you this is because, well, everything changes when you frame a door. When you frame a door, you're gonna wanna have the metal on the inside, okay? Now, we got two options. Option one, we have the metal on the inside, and we take 2x3 lumber, and we can screw it to the back side of the wood, okay? Option number B, you can add an extra 3 inches to the gap of the door, all right? And then you can take your lumber and screw it to the inside of the wood in the same plate. We screw from the back side into the wood, so the screw doesn't come out the other side, because it's only 1 1/4 inch screw, okay? It's that simple, that's the process, okay? Tack the metal into the track, laminate the screw to the metal, just top, middle, and bottom, and that's more than enough. Now you can put your jamb here and screw into the wood, and you're not gonna have an issue. If you want it extra strong, you can grab a couple of screws, throw it in the base plate as well, okay? You can go front and back. You can do all kinds of wonderful things like this. That'll save your bacon. Now, the other thing you're gonna wanna have here is a header. You wanna have something to attach your drywall to, and you wanna have something to attach your drywall casing to. So this is how you do that. This is where the steel comes in. That's so handy. It's like superior to everything on the market. Literally, I'm eyeballing. I got a few extra inches there, a few extra inches here. Okay, and first thing I'm gonna do is cut this to size. Now, I am using shears, okay, that keep my hand away from my metal while I cut. If you get the straight kind, you're forever going to have your knuckles right where the metal is, and you risk cutting your hands open. All right, these are much better. Now this is a stud we're using. We don't have to use anything fancy like track or anything else. We're just looking for a screw surface and a brad nail surface, okay? Now, you take this, and we're gonna be opening that up. You put it where your door is. Take your marker and mark your spot. All right, now if you have a square, that's great. But for the most part, you just eyeball that cut, mark both ends. This is the art of being close, right? I love it when close is good enough. Okay, now, we're only gonna cut the short side on both sides of this, okay? Now this technique isn't just used for doors. You can use this for doing bulkheads, all right? And working around unique obstacles, helping to cut in your plumbing. You bend this open, all right? And you can go open as much as you like, okay? There we go. And that just snaps into place. And of course, throw your level, boom, right? And you would measure up, if you're putting in a standard door, it's an 80-inch door and it needs an 83-inch hole. So you just measure up to 83 and you can raise this or lower this as you need to. Now, of course, these magnets aren't gonna hold the whole world together. There's just enough there to hold it together, so be a little cautious. Once you're in the right spot, again, you're just using a wafer screw on each side. Okay? Yeah, that's it. I know it gets almost too ridiculously easy, doesn't it? Done. Okay, and you can wafer screw right into the wood. That's fine too. You can use these snips if you like. Here, I'll show you this. When you're working around the wood, you can take this, all right, and bend open that little curve. Because the metal isn't 3 sides, it actually, the last 1/4 inch turns back in again, and it becomes an obstruction. Now, this way, when you screw that on, you have a nice flat surface for your drywall to go over. So we're going to assume that that's the level spot. All right, and there you go. That's how you can put a header on a door. That's how you can put bracing between a wall and a wall to tie it all together around obstructions, ductwork, boxes, beams, anything like that, all right? You can tie your walls together just with that simple little system. And if you want, you can even screw from the back side right here like this, okay? And you can tie two pieces of metal together. Just make sure your hand's not in the way, all right? The back side of the metal usually is dimpled, and if you put the screw pin in the dimple, it'll sit real nice and go on an angle for you. All right, now, if you wanted to do something like a bathroom shower, okay? And you want to run a bunch of plumbing, trust me, you don't want to have metal. Metal is not your friend when you're doing your bathroom and your plumbing, all right? For that, you're going to want to laminate your steel stud like this, okay? Again, invert your second stud so that you have wood on the inside. Put in a wooden cross brace, all right? That way you can attach your clips for your plumbing that are designed for wood only. You can screw your valve right to the wood, which is designed for that only. You don't have to get involved with a bunch of baler wire to connect all your plumbing lines and that sort of thing. Just throw a couple quick studs in there and then frame your situation as you need it. If you have to bring your plumbing lines in from above, okay? And you want to have them, let's say you're near the outside wall, and you want to bring them on this side of the plastic, on the outside wall, which is allowed. What you can do is you can take a wood piece and make a header here, all right? And then you can cut the metal out of the way, bring your plumbing lines in, drill through the wood, bring them through the wood and on this side of the vapor barrier, all right? And run that right down. You can push the vapor barrier in, put a cross brace in. You can cheat a little bit like that on the outside wall as long as you're on this side of the plastic and you're using the acoustic caulk to do the sealing. If you seal off the air and you're on this side of the vapor barrier, there's no risk of freezing, so that's okay. All right, so now I'm just gonna go use this like a whiteboard and I'm gonna show you how to do your material takeoff, okay? This is how you know how to measure. So we're gonna take our room, and if it's a basement, we'll say it's 20 by 30 feet. So this 20, 20, 20, 20. Now you need, we're gonna call them studs, and you need track, okay? You wanna identify when you're making your material order, am I using tracks and studs to make like a ladder construction for my bulkheads, or am I gonna use OSB and 2x2s, or OSB and the 2x2 steel version, okay? Which is a perfectly good way to do it. We have that in a video as well. We'll put that description down below. All you wanna do is measure this off. Studs are 8 foot, okay? Tracks come in 10 foot. All right, so I need 2, 4, 7, 10, top and bottom makes 20, plus any other track that you need for bulkheads or interior walls as well if you're gonna make them, okay? So you just put down 20 of those. Now for the studs, you take the total perimeter, all right, which is 20, 40, 70 is 100 feet in this case. Get 1 stud for every foot. Now I know we build walls 16 inch on center, all right? But every time you get to a corner, you're gonna have 2 studs, all right? Every time you're gonna be building around something unique like a bulkhead, one of your studs is gonna get used to do the bracing, okay? You're gonna run into situations where you're gonna need extra studs for framing out windows and such. So the rule of thumb is 1 for every linear foot. That'll get you so close to perfect. You probably, in most cases, will have 2 left over, or you need to go to the store for 2 more at the end of the day. But it's really close. So here you need 100, right? Insulation wise, measure your floor to ceiling. It's 2 bats, does 8 feet, okay? So you measure your total square footage. That's how you do this, all right? Because the bats are designed for square footage, and they're designed so 2 pieces go in a wall. And if you're a little shorter than 8 feet, it ends up with garbage, you have excess, but you aren't ever gonna over purchase doing it this way. So in this way, I got 100 times 8. So I need for insulation, I got 100 linear feet times 8 feet tall, it's 800 square feet of insulation, all right? And then the total amount of insulation in square footage is printed on the bag, so it's easy to do the math, all right, when you're at the store. Now, the only other thing you need is vapor barrier. Again, you got 800 square feet. an 8-foot vapor barrier, or you want to use a 10-foot vapor barrier. Vapor barrier, 10 foot, you want to get not 800 square feet, okay? Because you're going 10 feet tall, because you're going to count to go right up in the rafter joist. So over purchase here, okay? And get yourself a 1,000 square foot roll. They sell it in a 1,000 square foot roll. So if you need 800 or 900 feet, just get the 1,000 and then you'll be okay. You won't be disappointed. Because if you get the 800 foot roll or the 600 foot roll, and you have to buy the second roll in order to do just a little bit more material, you're gonna spend almost double, because they don't give you much of a price break when you buy a little smaller volume. They really take you to the wall. Other than that, you're gonna wanna just say, oh, I've got a door, so I need 3 studs, or 2 studs a door. You've gotta have the plate, so you need your pressure treated lumber, okay? Same thing with your studs. It's 30, 60, 80, 100. Did I say 100? You need 200 because it's top and bottom. My bad. Pressure treated. Get them in the 10-foot length as well. It's easier math, okay? Now right there, you've got your pressure treat, you've got your studs, you got your tracks, you got your insulation, you got your vapor barrier. The only thing left is drywall. Same thing, measure your perimeter. If you want to go vertical like this, you take your whole perimeter, which is 100, divide by 4. You need drywall, so I'll go like this. 25 sheets at 8 feet, ½ inch is fine, all right? If you like a little quieter, then you can always go 5/8, but there's no real need for that, all right? And remember, if you're concerned about the humidity level in your basement, and you're wondering, should I get the green or the blue drywall? The answer is no. Solve the humidity problem in your basement, okay? Don't build if you think it's going to rot. This is the wrong time to start worrying about humidity when you're going to buy a drywall, all right? If you're concerned about that, then consider putting in an underlay system and build this entire thing on top of the subfloor, okay? Now we did a video how to build a subfloor system, very cost effective. We use exterior plateau or dimpled membrane for waterproofing a foundation, 5/8 tongue and groove subflooring. We'll put the link in the description down below, and you can put your whole subfloor on. You can avoid buying the pressure treated lumber. You can put your tracks directly on that subfloor system, okay? Really simple, nice and easy. Now, I know that's not going to answer all the questions that are out there, and if you're in the middle of a building project and you need a little extra help, or you have questions about your particular home, consider becoming a member. You can always just hit the join button. We're here to help. We got an email that you can send me pictures of your job and I can correspond with you and give you that little extra information and confidence that you need so that you can have a successful renovation. Other than that, I think that's it for us today. Consider checking out our drywall series, because if you need this, you're definitely going to need to watch this. We'll see you again real soon.